Okay, welcome back folks. It's time for something different today. We're going to be loading up some tiny little 25 ACP. Now this isn't the start of a reloading series or anything like that. I expect this to be the only video I do on this subject because I don't own the gun. The gun we're going to be shooting is a Beretta 418. It actually belongs to someone I work with. They wanted me to have a look at it and see if I thought it was still safe to shoot. This was handed down in their family, so this is a little bit scary. You know, normally our mantra, our highest priority, kind of our prime directive around here is don't blow your face off. That takes a back seat today. Like, that's priority number 2. Priority number 1 today is do not blow up someone's family heirloom. So I want to be extra cautious and careful, but I think we'll be just fine. Like, I tore it apart, got it cleaned up really well. It's in pretty good shape. Didn't look like there was a whole lot of wear in there from shooting, so it's been fired, no doubt about that, but I didn't notice any problems or signs of abnormal wear. It's really a cool gun. This one is dated 1953. And they've got a really cool holster for it that I looked up a little bit of info. It looks like this is from the same era as the gun. It's labeled perfect fit. It says top grain cowhide, Buckheimer made, and says Towson holster. So my research says that company's out of business, but they made pretty nice holsters, 50 years ago. And this one's certainly holding up really well. The worst signs of wear are on the strap, and especially like the inside of the strap. It's got a lot of furry stuff going on, so still in good shape. The snaps work just fine. Actually, whenever I first looked at the gun, I thought it had some rust on it, but it was this deteriorating strap was kind of dropping brown dust all over it. So that's our test platform. I want to put as few rounds through the gun as possible just to kind of make sure we function test it and check our ammunition, make sure it's going to run the gun well. And at that point, we're done. I'm going to pack it all up, give it back to him, hopefully with a big old sack of ammunition to where if he wants to shoot it, he can feel comfortable doing so. Now, the 25 ACP is a tiny little guy. It gets compared a lot to 22 long rifle. Here it is lined up next to a good old piece of 22 long rifle, and on the right is a piece of 9mm. So this is a diminutive little fellow. Most people say it has similar or slightly less energy than 22, but it still seems reasonably popular for like ankle guns and pocket guns and things like that. So debating the merits of the cartridge are a little bit outside the scope of this video, and it's been beaten to death all over YouTube. You can see hundreds of videos that talk about the usefulness of 25 ACP. All right, so components and reloading equipment. I picked up a set of Lee dies. Yeah, these guys right here. This is a 3-die set with a sizing die, an expanding die, and a bullet seating die. And it comes with the shell holder and a tiny little 0.17 cc scoop. So that's all pretty standard and just like we would have with any other pistol die set, except some of them come with a crimp die, like a Lee factory crimp die. That isn't available, which is no big deal. For brass, I'm trying something new. This is Jageman brass. I think that's how you say it. Jageman, something like that. I've come across some range pickups and random stuff with that Jag head stamp, but I've never really used them before. But just from a visual inspection, it looks like really nice brass. This is American-made brass. It's made in Wisconsin, and it looks like the main distributor is Natchez Shooter Supply, which I really like Natchez. I've placed a ton of orders there. Never had any problems whatsoever. Each bag, so I bought 2 bags of 100. Each one was $16.49. So a little over 16 cents a piece. Hornady also makes brass, and they sell it in packages of 200, and it's between 25 cents and 27 cents each. So the Jageman was a whole lot cheaper than Hornady, so I decided to take a chance. So far, like I said, visual inspection, it looks great. Bullet selection was extremely easy because there are very few bullets that are made in this .251 diameter. These are the Spear Gold Dots, and that's what we're going to be testing. Part number 3985. Apparently Hornady used to make a 35 grain XTP, but that was discontinued. Sierra has some load data for a 50 grain offering. I guess they used to make. They don't make that anymore. At least I couldn't find them anywhere, and it's not mentioned on their website. That was a Full Metal Jacket. So bullet selection extremely limited. Most of the people I found that actually shoot a lot of 25 ACP and like reloading for it were shooting their own cast lead projectiles. So we're not going to get into any of that. We'll just stick with the gold dots. And plus, gold dot bullets are great. So I feel pretty good about that. On the primer side of things, I pulled out some CCI 500 primers and also some Federal number 100s, small pistol primers. I'm a little bit worried about the CCIs, because CCIs have a reputation for being hard primers. And if you've got a weak firing pin, spring, or something like that, sometimes they won't reliably go off. On the other hand, Federal is generally known as the softest primers. I've never tested this myself. I should probably do that at some point, but for now, just kind of going by what gets passed around as common knowledge. So I pulled out the Federals. If we have any problems getting the CCIs to go off, we might try the Federals. Because I posted a picture over on Instagram of this gun, and Ozark Spirit, longtime friend of the channel here, replied, said he's got one of these, and that was something I should be looking out for, is that sometimes the firing pin springs get weak in these guns. So if it won't even reliably set off the Federals, we might be in the market for a new spring. And I did a little bit of searching and didn't come up with a whole lot. So hopefully that isn't something we have to worry about. I was actually looking, I was hoping somebody just sold an entire spring kit or something for this gun so I could just replace the recoil spring and the firing pin spring, but wasn't really able to find one. We'll cross that bridge if we come to it. For powder, you're limited to the very fastest powders out there. My plan at this point is to stick with Alliant Bullseye unless we have a reason to try something different. Now, luckily, Speer has load data for the 35 grain gold dot, and we can see they list Bullseye, they list Tight Group, Red Dot, Winchester 231, so if you're familiar with pistol powders, you kind of get the idea. These are all fast burning pistol powders. And if you look at the charge weights, the Bullseye charge is 1.7 grains. That is minuscule. So this is going to be a tiny charge of powder, and it's going to require like an obsessive level of attention not to screw this up, right? Do not blow up someone else's family heirloom. We cannot get any charge weights wrong. We cannot afford a double charge. And when you're talking about a 1.7 grain charge weight, screwing up by 1/10 of a grain is big. We don't want to do that. Because if you look up the load data, there is no starting charge. You see a DNR, which is do not reduce. 1.7 is the charge, and that's it. Now, another good thing about the Lee dies is they also have a little load data chart in them, and they also show for a 35 grain jacketed bullet, Bullseye, they show a starting charge of 1.5 and a max of 1.7. So they give you a little bit of wiggle room. So that's what we're going to run with. We're going to run with 1.7 grains and just see how that goes. That's also, if you notice back at the Speer data, the primer they tested with was a CCI 500, which is why I want to start our testing with these instead of going straight to the Federals, because I'm worried about the differences between the primers and one being a little bit hotter than the other. Like, I think that would be a significant factor in a charge this small. I don't know, but it just seems like the safer bet to go ahead and stick with the CCI 500. So I think that's about enough yapping. What I want to do is let's load up 5 and just go out and see if the gun works. And then if everything goes well in that test, then we'll come back, we'll reload the ones we fired, make sure that nothing weird happens during, the reloading of fired brass that we didn't see with new brass, that sort of deal. And we'll load up some more to get some velocity and accuracy information, and then we'll probably be done. That's kind of the plan. So to start out, let's head to the press. We'll go ahead and run our brass through the full-length sizing die and the expanding die, and then we'll be ready for primers. Now, the good thing about the Lee set here, this is a carbide sizing die. You'll see the extra shiny part inside there. That's a carbide sizing ring, so we don't have to worry about lubing any cases. God, I cannot get over how tiny this is. The sizing ring seems barely bigger than the decapping pin. So reading the instructions, everything looks, standard, like you would expect. Holy crap, I can't get man, that shell holder was a pain in the butt to get out of there. But yeah, that little dude is our shell holder. The biggest warning I saw out there about reloading these is to watch your fingers. The cases are so tiny and they're so hard to handle that it's easy to pinch a finger. So we'll screw this guy down until it touches, and the instructions say to go just a little bit farther and then finger tighten the lock ring. All right, let's see how that does. Drop our tiny little case in there, and that shell holder fits a little bit sloppy. See how the sizing process goes. Yep, it went up in there with pretty much no resistance, or very little. So here's number 2. Yeah, the shell holder fit is just a little bit funky. The piece of brass kind of wants to tilt on you a little bit, so you got to guide it up in there a little bit, which puts your fingers in danger of getting pinched. And there's number 5. All right, no drama there. We could expand the case mouth now, or we could do it after we prime, but let's go ahead and do it now. Now the expanding die has got this guy inside of it, which our brass is going to come up to and get pushed over that to open up that case mouth a little bit so we can accept a bullet. And the instructions for this guy say we crank it down until it touches the shell holder. There it is right there. And then we back it out one full turn. There's one full turn. And we adjust our flare from there. So let's take the first case, run it up into this guy. There it is. And sometimes, like on the way out, it's going to hang up a little bit because it's up over that little expander, but a little pop should break it free. So let's grab one of our tiny little bullets and see if it wants to sit down in there. That's actually not too bad. Like, it'll go in there just a touch, but it's not quite what you want. It's still kind of hard to get straight. So let's adjust this guy down about 1/8 of a turn there and run this back through. That'll open it up just a touch more. Yep, and now our bullet's a little bit easier to get set down in there. I don't want to go too far here. Like if I was loading 9mm or something, I would probably go a little bit farther just to make sure it was super easy to get the bullet in there. But since this kit does not have the Leaf Factory crimp die, which has that, the Leaf Factory crimp dies normally have another little carbide ring that goes over here and makes sure that you don't have any bulges or that your flare wasn't too much. We don't have that backup, so I don't want to flare it too much. I'm worried that the seating die is not going to do enough to reduce that bulge. All right, I think that's it. We'll roll with this and see how it goes. So here's number 2, which doesn't want to align. There it is. Okay, up onto there and off. Yep, there's number 3, number 4, and number 5. Now another thing that's a little bit annoying is I don't have any loading trays small enough for these tiny little cartridges. So I pulled out this universal, and as you can see there, it's not a good fit, but hopefully it'll be good enough. Now one more thing I want to do is hit them with a deburring tool. Yeah, just the mouth of that case. Nothing crazy, just lightly. A couple little spins here to hit the inside. The outside looks fine, but I can go ahead and hit that guy as well. Man, these things are tiny. Now our priming options are going to be pretty limited, I think. So with the Lee hand priming tool, I don't have the right shell holder because these use basically a normal press shell holder has got this part on the bottom that snaps in, and the hand priming tool uses, a similar thing that doesn't have that thing on the bottom. So if I wanted to use a hand primer, I would need the number 15 hand priming tool shell holder, and I don't have that. So what we'll use, well, actually this might not work either. This is my RCBS Universal. Yep, and the jaws are too big. So we have one option, and that is to prime on the press. So let's go back to the press. Okay, so this right here is the primer tube for my press. And what we can do is take our package of CCI 500 primers and pick up 5 of them. 5. Then we flip it over and they slide down there, and we put this there and then pull out the pin. And we drop our little blast shield over there like that, and we're ready to prime. So let's see, shell holder back in the press, put a cartridge in the shell holder. So what we want to do is pull, like I don't have you guys a very good view here, do I? All right, maybe that's better. So we pull back on the handle, it comes back and picks up a primer, and then when we push forward, yep, there's one in the cup. So we drop this down just a touch to where this will slide forward to below the case, and then we keep going down and it pushes the primer up into the brass. That felt pretty good, like it felt smooth. I don't prime a ton on the press. I prefer hand priming because it gives you a little bit better feel, but that seems to have worked pretty well. Yep, there is our first primer. Seems to be sitting nicely just below flush like you want it. And yeah, pretty happy with that. So let's see if the others go just as easy. So back to pick up a primer, push it forward, and then bring the cartridge down. That one's sitting just a touch crooked. There it went. Okay, that went in a little less smoothly than the first one, but the result's the same. Looks like that went in there well. Now, any of you all who are watching this that reload 25 ACP, feel free to give us some tips in the comments because, well, this Lee shell holder seems to suck. And I'm wondering if that's your experience as well. Is there another company that makes a shell holder that is a little tighter fit, perhaps. I don't know, working with such tiny components, I mean, it's hard, but this just kind of flops around a lot. And approaching your sizing die or lining up for a primer here, like in this procedure, is just kind of a little bit of a pain in the butt with this shell holder. All right, last one here. That one went in nice and easy and came out good. Now the scary part, let's go weigh some powder. All right, so I pulled out the trusty old RCBS beam scale. Been a while since we've used that guy. And trying to get it zeroed just right. I think that's just about perfect right there. So what I want to do is bump it over to 1.5 grains. And then I've got a check weight set. Now this is a 1 grain check weight. And this is a 0.5. So that should come out just perfect. Yep, it looks pretty good. Now also, as a backup, I got just a cheap little digital scale off of Amazon. Let's there's 1.0 and it reads 1.0, and there's the 0.5 and it reads 1.5. So we've got two scales that are reading good. Now the reason why I don't want to use this as the primary scale is that trickling very small charges on scales like this can be frustrating, because the way these digital scales work, like, they like to be at 0. You notice when they hit 0, like over here, you'll see a couple little icons like that. That top one there means that, yep, it's a stable reading. But if you put the pan back on and it goes back to 0, then you see that little O, that little 0 come up there. The scale likes to kind of stick at 0. A lot of these you can put just something tiny in there and it'll stay at 0 because the scale kind of acts a little bit sticky at 0. I know that might not make sense, but whatever. Now a beam scale on the other hand doesn't give a crap. So we need to switch. Now 1.5 is what we just tested with because I had check weights for that, but now we need to bump up to 1.7. And I'm not even going to use the little powder scoop that came with the dies. I'm just going to trickle up straight from nothing. There it comes. Just a little bit more. And that looks good. So if we move our pan over to this guy, oh, 1.8. Let's take it off, get another measurement. Now it says 1.9. Now you see why I pulled out a second scale, right? Now here's the ridiculous thing. I just put it back on the beam scale and it's reading high. I mean, I probably need to grab a Q-tip and make sure that my knife edge where the scale pivots is nice and clean. Because, yeah, right there, very first charge, we almost charged one a little bit too hot. So I'll be right back. All right, so I got it cleaned up a little bit. Let's throw another charge here. See if our scales agree this time. Okay, so the beam scale reads good. Let's move it over to the digital scale. And it reads 1.8. Let me throw the 1.5 grain check weights back on the beam scale here. Okay, there it is. And I tell you what, I'll fire up yet another digital scale. So I adjusted our 0 just a tiny little bit with the 1.5 grain check weights. Let it settle again here, make sure it looks about right. Yep, that's about right. And here's our first Chinese Amazon scale, 1.0 with the 1 grain check weight. 1.4, lift it up, set it back down. Now it's 1.5. Okay, let's try this second scale here. You guys won't be able to read this one, but 1.0 and 1.5. All right, so these two reading the check weights fine, and hopefully I've got that one back there now reading it a little bit better. So I've moved the adjustment here back to 1.7. Let's trickle yet another charge here. All right, now that's just about right. Unfortunately, that scale turned itself off. That's the thing I hate most about these cheap little digital scales. This is how they have a automatic shut off that you can't adjust. But this one's still alive, reading good, and it reads exactly 1.7. I'm going to call that our first good charge. Now the next problem is pretty much any reloading funnel is not going to be shallow enough to fit the cartridge in there. So I think what I'm actually going to have to do is hold it up there with my finger, which this is probably not the best one. Yeah, this one here from the MTM kit gives us a little bit of room. So I'm going to hold it by hand. Well, I guess I could set it right there and dump our powder. Now we need to be very careful not to lose any powder, because an undercharge could be just as bad as an overcharge. So as I pull that out, there it is, that's our charged case. Want to make sure I didn't get any flakes of powder falling out, and I didn't. Now with no proper loading block, I'm going to seat each bullet as soon as I weigh the charge. So let's go ahead over to the press and get a bullet seated in this little guy. All right, so the instructions that came with this bullet seating die are just about worthless. They tell you to put a loaded round that you want to duplicate into there and raise the ram. We don't have a loaded round that we want to duplicate. We're starting from scratch. So our knob on top is going to adjust our bullet seating depth. So we want to back this out to where we'll have plenty of room to work. I want to raise up the lock ring. Now the old Lee instructions where you screw it down and then you back it off 3 turns or something like that. Here's what we're going to do. These bullet seating dies do have a crimp in them. Like you can crimp with the seating die. So the way I want to set it is to, well, we'll get it started here in the press. Okay, still till it starts poking out there on the bottom. I want to put, well, we're not going to use our charged case because I don't want to take the risk of spilling any. But here's one of our sized pieces of brass. I'm going to put it in the shell holder and raise it and try and get it straight with this stupid shell holder. It's going in a little bit. No, there it is. I'm afraid our case flare is messing with what I want to do here. All right, so let's change it up again. I'm going to get a new piece of brass that hasn't been flared or expanded. And I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go ahead and run it through the sizing die. Okay, so now it's been through the sizing die. Now let's go back to our bullet seating die and see if this goes up in there a little bit easier. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so now I'm going to screw this die down until I feel it make contact. And it's already making contact right about there. So I think that is the crimp touching the case mouth. That doesn't seem to be very far down though. Let's roll with it and see what happens. So I'm going to finger tighten the lock ring and we'll just see what happens. So here's our first bullet. I'm going to set it down into our case. I'm going to try and get it as straight as I can so it has a pretty easy time going up in there. Let's see, make sure that our seating depth is adjusted out a bunch. Run it up into the die a little bit. I'm going to screw this down until I feel it touch the bullet. Should feel the seating stem touch the bullet. There it is right there. So now if we drop it back down, go another quarter turn or so. There we go. That should have seated it down into there a little bit. Our target overall length is 0.870. So we're already not far from there. We're at 0.898. Let's go down a little bit more. Run it back up in there. Yep, still a good bit long, 0.891. Yep, got it to 0.881, 0.874, and 0.871. I'm going to leave the setting where it's at for right now until I seat a second one, and we'll compare how consistent the overall lengths are coming out. So, all right, I need to weigh out another charge. I'm not going to put you through that torture again. Okay, so I weighed the other 4 charges and seated the other bullets, and I've got 5 loaded rounds here now. Everything went good, getting pretty consistent overall lengths from round to round. The hollow point on the gold dots does have little kind of humps around it, so you can basically spin the round and your overall length varies by 1 or 2 thousandths, something like that. But these are all reading right at that 0.870 inch overall length target. Now, one thing I want to do before we shoot them is let's see if they're going to fit in the barrel. So I need to tear this guy down. So lock lock the slide back, and then the barrel is actually kind of pressed in there. You got to push pretty hard. Ah, freak. Or you cut yourself like I just did. Yeah, so that barrel's kind of pressed in there forward, so you just got to push it until it pops out. Now let me get a Band-Aid, and then we'll plunk test these guys. All right, so got some minor repair going on here. It's all right, so here's our barrel. And what we want to do is just kind of drop this in there. Oh, did you hear that? Get that microphone a little closer. Yeah, it just drops down in there with a nice satisfying plunk. They're all going in okay. Some of these other ones aren't quite plunking quite as satisfactorily as the first one. That one's great. Yeah, they're good. I just didn't quite have the angle right on some of them, I guess, but they're all going down in there nicely. So let's go shoot them. See what happens. So let's drop them in the magazine here. They fit nicely in the magazine. Yeah, it all seems good. So we're pretty much ready to shoot. I just need to get this barrel back in here. All right, so I got the barrel back in, got our magazine loaded up. Let's go see if it'll shoot. It's dark outside, but hopefully I can find, yeah, we'll find some light somewhere. All right, is that enough light to see the gun? Oh yeah, we're good. All right, first things first, magazine's in. Tell you what, I need to make sure I know which way's safe and which way isn't. Yes, this gun has a little lever right here. So forward is safe, and then down is fire. Okay, let's see if we can feed one off the magazine. That went smooth. I think one went in there. Yep, we got one in the chamber. So let's see what happens. Maybe I should shoot left-handed since I'm right-handed. That way if I blow my hand off, I'll be okay. All right, let's see. Did not fire. Okay, here's the next one. Okay, that one fired. Put the gun on safe here. Yes, that first round got a dent in the primer, but it just didn't go off. All right, let's shoot the next three. Okay, that one didn't go off. That one didn't go off. And that one didn't go off. Huh. Okay, so I only found 2 of the pieces that didn't go off. I need a metal detector. I need a little metal detector. I don't know why I don't have one. And I can't find that piece of fired brass either. So these 2 that I found, I'm going to give them one more pop to give those primers one more opportunity to go off. And I'm going to run after the brass before I lose it. Nope, that one didn't go off. Maybe I'll find them tomorrow in the daylight. All right, here we go. This is the last one. Okay, so I found that fired piece of brass. Let's go back to the bench. Let's load up 5 more with Federal primers and see if they will reliably shoot. All right, so that fired piece of brass looked great. And I didn't bother turning on the camera for the other 5 loads. So I've got 5 more loaded up, this time with Federal primers. Let's see if these guys will actually go off now. Okay, 1 for 1, and I actually found that piece of brass. And it's not wanting to go off. The cocking indicator is back here, but gun looks cocked. This freaking safety back here, it's kind of a pain in the butt with my big hands. It's hard to make sure that it's pushed in. Maybe that's what I'm screwing up here. Yep, that was it. Yep, however, we did get a little bit of a stovepipe here. Yep, so there we got a double fire. That was weird. But I guess the good news is that 5 out of 5 went off. And I don't know if double firing is a common problem with these guns or what, but all right, let's get back to the bench. All right, so I got back to the bench. I pulled the gun apart just to, look around, make sure nothing weird was going on or whatever. Here's that spring behind the firing pin that I really think probably needs changed, but it was good that all 5 of our federal primers went off. So I was taking a close look at the brass. I've only recovered a total of 4 pieces so far. Let me show you the difference between these primers. This, of course, is the CCI. You can see, very shallow. It's a miracle it went off. And these other 3 are Federals. Nice deep primer strikes, just a completely different look. So like I mentioned earlier, I've never really tested primer hardness myself in any sort of a controlled manner, but this is certainly proof enough for me that Federals are a whole lot softer than CCIs. So pretty wild. One thing I wanted to show you on the brass, let me see if I can find the specific piece. It's on all of them, but can you see those kind of 2 snake bite looking marks? I thought they were cracks. I thought I had split the neck. If I can't get it in this shot, I'll drop in a closer shot here so you can see it. I thought for sure they were cracks, but they're not. And I found the culprit. Top of the barrel has got this, and it looks like on the way out, I'm assuming the ejector is tilting the case up, and these 2 little spots here kind of make a bit of a mark there right on the case mouth. But otherwise, yeah, the brass looks fine. Like here's one of the ones that didn't go off, and I was taking a couple measurements. So kind of right here at the case head is 274 on a piece that hasn't been fired, and a piece that has been fired is about 275. Yep, this one's reading 275 pretty much all the way around. Up here right below the case mouth, this piece that's been fired is right at 275 up there. And the new piece, or the piece with a bullet loaded in there reads about 275 as well. Maybe just a smidgen smaller. So chamber in our barrel seems to be a good fit. Everything's good. Not seeing anything scary on the fired brass. Well, I will mention that there was one piece that had a pretty good amount of like soot and smoky crap on the side of it. I'm not sure if it's picking that up in the magazine or if that's actual gas getting by. I don't know. It doesn't seem like anything major to worry about. So just about the only thing left here with the reloading process is to reload some of the fired brass. So let's take these 4 pieces of fired brass and go ahead and run them through the process. So we start with resizing and decapping. Nothing felt weird there. Our primer got popped out. Nothing weird. So let's go ahead and expand the case mouth. And while we're here, we'll go ahead and put a Federal primer in that guy. And it's ready for powder. So back to where it needs to be. All right, so I'll wait out charges for these 4. And let's make sure the bullets seat like normal and come out like the new brass. Seating seemed okay. Let's check our overall length. Looking for 0.870. And we get 0.870. And the final test here with our barrel is to make sure that it goes down in there all right. Yep, goes down in. Yep, no problem at all. All right, this is the last one. Check overall length here on these last ones. 0.869, 0.869, and 0.870. That one plunks. Next one plunks. And the last one plunks. Good. So here's what I want to do. I want to load up 25 more with new brass. And then tomorrow, once we have some daylight, we'll get some velocity numbers. We'll shoot a group or 2 and see if this thing is accurate. And 25 more plus 4 of the ones we reloaded, 29 rounds, that should give us plenty to function test the gun a little bit better. See if that double fire shows back up. See if we run into any more light primer strikes, that sort of stuff. So that's it. I'm going to load those off camera. No reason to torture you any further. And I guess I'll see you guys out on the range. All right, so I managed to find most of those rounds I lost in the grass last night in the dark. Hopefully that won't be a problem now. We got some daylight to work with. I want to start out by trying to get some velocity information. Hopefully this won't be too bad. I haven't used the lab radar with pistol very much, so getting the trigger settings and all of that garbage just right might be a challenge. Yep, and getting it aligned just like we need it. Hopefully that's good enough. So I put 3 rounds in the magazine. Let's just give it a try and see what happens here. Well, that was interesting. Yeah, let me put this guy back on safe. So, well, we did get a velocity reading. That's good, 965 feet per second, which is just about what the load data told us to expect. But I had the gun on safe, and I tried to cock it while it was on safe. And the slide locked back. So instead of slowly letting the slide down, I pushed the safety down, which released the slide lock, sent the slide home, and fired it. Now, luckily, I was doing that with the barrel pointed down range and all that stuff. So yeah, don't drop the slide with this gun. So I guess the safe way to load it is, let's see, where'd that one bullet I dropped go? All right, here we go. So we got an unloaded gun, and it's on safe. So if I put the magazine in, I need to take it off of safe. I want to shoot my freaking chronograph and load it like that. So that went as expected. All right, let's shoot another one. Get a couple more velocity readings. 1,042 feet per second. And we got a stovepipe there. So it's back in the magazine. Load it up. And that one gave us 1,006 feet per second. So now the gun's empty, back on safe, lock the slide back, and drop the magazine. All right, I think that's good enough for velocity. You know, that's right where the load data said we should expect. So let's see if we can shoot a group with this thing. So I've put a little target out here at 5 yards, 15 feet. So let's see if we can hit anywhere close to where we're aiming with this guy. All right, magazine is in. Round is loaded. Okay. That magazine fed nicely. 2 of the 3 shots went right there by the orange. All right, let's shoot 3 more. Okay, magazine in. Yeah, there was another one of those double fires. I don't think it's me, but it's certainly possible. I mean, this gun is itty bitty. I've got to have my trigger finger into the trigger guard right up to the fattest, meatiest part of the joint there. And the trigger feel is terrible. But man, with the exception of that one shot that went a little bit high, I think stacking them right in there at 5 yards. So I was going to load up the magazine all the way. I've got 7 rounds in there. Actually, the 8th one went in, but it is way too tight. So I don't know how many they're supposed to hold, but this one seems to comfortably hold 7. Let's see if it'll feed off of a full magazine. I'm a little bit worried that if this thing runs away, you know, and I've got the magazine full, that could be bad. But I think it'll be okay. All right. Oh, crap. I accidentally did that with the safety on. So let me drop the magazine. All right, so it's clear. So let me drop the slide, put the magazine back in, take the safety off, and then try that again. Yep, that went okay. Now let's shoot a couple more. And I'm going to be very, very careful to pull that trigger all the way back and hold it. Yeah, it looks like we got another stovepipe. Yep, that's exactly what happened. We'll put the gun on safe, lock the slide back, drop the magazine. Well, that's good. We know that the magazine still feeds well whenever it's full. So there's 4 more rounds I want to shoot here at the paper. These are the ones we reloaded. Like, I don't expect any differences or problems here, but it's worth trying them out. So right now I got the slide lock back, so I'm going to drop the slide, take the gun off safe. Might as well go ahead and fire it. Okay. Put the magazine in, and we're good to go. All right, let's go to a fresh dot. Let's see if we can shoot us a group here. All right, put it on safe, lock the slide back. Beautiful. So here's one more thing I want to do is I want to go grab a block of ballistic gel, and let's put a couple of these into the gel just for the hell of it, see what happens. All right, so my gel's a little bit cloudy, but that's all right. I reckon I'll shoot 3 of them into it, and I'm going to do it pretty much point blank. Maybe just a foot or 2 away from the block. All right, bullets will be coming from your right. Holy moly, that was more penetration than I expected. All right, let's shoot 2 more. Man, look at those lined up all nice and pretty. We'll get a better measurement once we get inside, but that's a little bit past 8 inches. So probably about 9 inches of penetration. All right, let's get back to the bench. Let's dig these out. And I ran into a reloading problem I want to alert you guys about before I let you go. All right, so I forgot to bring up a tape measure and I'm too lazy. It's right at 9 inches. Just trust me. It doesn't really matter. So I've got some needle nose pliers here. I'm going to try and dig these things out of there. I can never do this without like completely destroying the freaking gel block. Holy crap, that thing expanded like crazy. All right, let me dig out the other 2. We'll have a close look. Yeah, so these things are pretty. Very uniform and complete expansion. Very cool stuff. I certainly wouldn't want to get a shot with one of these. So yeah, that's enough of that. Pretty cool. So I mentioned having a reloading problem, and hopefully it's coming across on camera. These bullets are crooked. Like this one here on the right's especially obvious. You can tell it's like leaning to the left there. This guy's leaning to the right. See if I can maybe spin one. Probably not going to be able to because they're so little. But these are way crooked. And what happened was I just didn't have enough flare to make it so that I could reliably get the bullet started straight. And that seems to be critical here. As I was going along, I was noticing some of them weren't seating very smoothly, and I started, inspecting the rounds whenever I felt that, and this is what I started seeing. And it all came down to I just was not getting the bullet nicely aligned with the case. Now this is the seating stem out of the seating die. So this is what comes down and makes contact with your bullet. Your bullet seating stem is not going to help align that bullet. If you put it up crooked, it's going to come down and just jam it straight into the case crooked. So getting sufficient flare, getting that bullet lined up just right before you put it in the seating die seems to be a pretty big deal. At least it was in my case. So let's see. So the gel test went good. The bullets performed really nicely. The accuracy was fine. Like that was good. The 3 velocity readings we took were about where we expected and just a little bit lower. So back to the spear load data, they show a muzzle velocity of 1,040 feet per second, but I don't see a barrel length. So I don't know what size barrel they were testing out of, but we got 3 velocity readings, 965, 1042, and 1006. So yeah, right around 1,000 feet per second. So the CCI primers were a disaster. The 500s wouldn't go off, but the federal number 100s, we didn't have a single light primer strike with any of our federal loads. So that's good. So I had all sorts of problems running the gun, just the operation of the gun. It's extremely uncomfortable. The problem is every time I would take my finger off the trigger, my finger's longer than that, so that doesn't seem the least bit safe. So I'm just not used to shooting little pocket pistols, but it was pretty uncomfortable. The grip safety gave me a few problems, but I think once I got to where I was really kind of getting a hold of it and putting my finger way through the trigger, most of those problems cleared up. The gun does not lock back on the last shot, and I watched some other videos and it doesn't look like they're supposed to. So that was no big deal. But where this one fired when I dropped the slide, I've seen other people do it in videos and it didn't. So I'm not sure what's going on with this one that made it do that, and it really doesn't make any sense to me because, like, from this position, I mean, the gun is cocked at this point, right? Like that firing pin or whatever has come back and latched over the sear or whatever. So when you drop the slide, the firing pin shouldn't move. But if you look, this is the indicator when the gun is cocked, which, all right, it's on fire right now. It's got that cocking indicator. The back of the firing pin thing sticks out there. So I don't know why from a locked slide it fires. If there's an easy fix for that, or you guys know what's going on that causes that malfunction, let me know where I should look. I also looked it up. The magazine is supposed to hold 7 rounds, so the 7 we got into it is what it's supposed to hold. So that's okay. We had several stovepipes, and I don't know if the ammo needs to be a little bit hotter for it to cycle reliably. I'm not going to worry about it. So, overall, I think we accomplished our goal. The owner, he's not going to put that many rounds through it. He just wants to fire it to say he fired it and then put it back in the safe for safekeeping, I believe. So I've already actually talked with him about some of the safety malfunctions that I ran into. So I'll just make sure he's aware of that. Reloading for this was truly a pain in the ass. And I'll tell you, the worst part about it was this Lee number 15 shell holder. The fit is just so bad, and this probably contributed to at least some of my crooked bullets as well. And every time we were trying to prime it and upward pressure got applied, a lot of times it would want to tilt. So a bit of a nightmare here. I would be trying a different brand shell holder if I were planning to reload anymore. One thing I meant to check is the Frankfurt Arsenal hand priming kit. Let's see if this guy has the shell holder. I can already see that it doesn't. And the shell holder number isn't even mentioned here on their reference chart. So I'm stuck priming on the press because I've still got some more to load. I'm going to load him up about 100 rounds just to give back with the gun. Or I guess I'll actually probably load up the rest of the bullets, how many ever I've got. Probably about 150. I probably should have gone with just 100 pieces of brass and maybe 100 bullets. But, I wasn't really sure what we were getting into. I didn't want to get halfway through a video and then need to order more components. That's always a pain in the butt. But I'm pretty impressed with the Jageman brass. And I think I'm going to be trying more. Like, they actually have 300 Winchester Magnum brass, which, that's the polar opposite of this tiny little 25 auto. But yeah, in 300 Win Mag, there aren't a whole lot of brass options. And there are only 1 or 2 that are good brass options. So it might be worth trying their stuff. It seems to be priced very competitively, at or better than Starline prices, I believe. So we'll try it in some other stuff. So I think that pretty much covers it. This was a fun little project. I appreciate you joining me. I'll see you guys next time.